Greetings from Chicagoland. This is Munira, the CEO and founder of Kismet Ventures, Inc. I am here with Crystal Sheffield. Hi, Crystal.
Hi.
Hi, Crystal. Thank you so much for joining us. She joins us from
Kansas City, Missouri.
Kansas.
Right on the state line border, right?
Oh, okay. And I do these shows. I have a channel on YouTube that's Munira's Musings. I do these shows because I feel like there's people out there who need to be exposed, if you will, because they're doing so much, they're giving so much value to people in their lives and to others that they're touching with their work. And so I wanted to just, I talked to a few of them and I thought that they need to be exposed. And I mean that in a positive way. So this is my way of helping them out by doing an interview, talking to them about what they do and how they do it, and then sharing these interviews with them so we can expose them and upload them into LinkedIn and Facebook. So thank you again for being here. Crystal, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Hi. So I am originally from Tampa, Florida. I went to nursing school there, and a few months after nursing school, I did move to Kansas City with my fiance at the time. I definitely feel that my life was probably a bit more difficult than maybe other people's, or maybe other people can relate. I definitely had some family with substance abuse issues, and I would even say that I would started to go through burnout myself at 16, 17 years old when I was in college. So I definitely feel that, as I went through, and I went through nursing school as well, I was already feeling very like there needed to be more to life than what I was doing, that work was kind of consuming my life. And it really came to a head a few years ago when my sleep deprivation due to my burning out had caused me to almost get into a car accident. I had a very bad mistake from medications with a patient that luckily they ended up being okay, but it really woke me up to the fact that when I'm not caring for myself, or I'm not putting my health first, other people are going to suffer because of this. So that's really what helped me discover that about 3 years ago.
So you said you went through this at 16?
It started at 16. It's one of those things, and I think other people can probably see this. You get some wake-up calls, right? Like when I was 16, 17, I had a really bad relapse of my depression. And I was in therapy for months. And that should have been my first wake-up call. And then when I was, had that medication mistake, that should have been a wake-up call. And then I had a near fatal car, a near miss with a car accident. And that should have been a wake-up call. There's all these things that we see that they should have been red flags for us and should have told us, hey, we need to correct, we need to go a different way. And yet we tend to ignore them just because we're of this opinion that, oh, I can just keep working, I can overcome this, I don't need to slow down, I don't need to rest. So I find that all of these things within like a 5-year span were things that should have really alerted me to what was going on with my health, with my relationships, and with all of those things. And I was ignoring them.
So how did you first recognize it?
I feel like I was first recognizing it after that. It wasn't even after my near miss of my car accident. It was actually when my engagement completely crumbled. I moved to Kansas City to be with this person. And because of my work, I was never around. I was traveling all over the country for my corporate consulting job. And we grew apart. and our relationship completely just collapsed. And, it wasn't just me, it wasn't just him, a big piece of that was me neglecting my personal life and my relationships. So when that collapsed, I didn't have a place to live. I was kind of in between places to live. I had all of these different issues. My health was getting worse. And that was that final, kind of come to Jesus moment where I was like, this is it. I'm not going to let this happen to me again, because it had happened off and on so much throughout my life that was that kind of watershed moment for me.
So I understand the burnout. We all go through it,
Right.
It's college or it's either work, and especially if you're working for corporate and you're traveling so much that there is a burnout point because you're working and putting in 80 hours. I've been there. And
Right.
then you have family, and then you have people who are also dependent on you, and yeah, I understand completely what you're saying. And it gets to a point where you either shut down completely or just keep going without understanding that you're exhausted and you need to take a break. So there are many people out there who just do that same thing over and over again, day in, day out, and they are burnt out and they don't know how to stop. So what is your advice to them?
So I find that the first and most really important step is being aware of what's happening and really taking stock in your life of what you truly value. What is important to you? Because so many times we get kind of caught up in what we should be doing and what other people are doing around us. Other people are working 80 hours, or other people are skipping their lunch, and other people are doing all these things. But what is it that you value? Are you putting what you value first? And for a lot of times, I find that even with myself, I'm not doing that. I'm not putting what I value first. So I find if we get that kind of clarity around what is important, that is really the beginning to slowing down and creating that space.
Okay, no, but that's right. But sometimes, and you mentioned a few things that that I want to address. The thing is
Sure.
that you talked about medication errors. Isn't that one of the primary things that there's so many lawsuits in medical field? Because
Absolutely.
so when you did that, and you're telling me that this person was all right, how major was it?
It was so. As you know, I'll use this as an example. So blood thinners are something that cause you to bleed more, which sometimes we want that to happen if people are tending to have clots or strokes. This is something that's typically before a colonoscopy, before any sort of procedure. We stop them for a day, a few days, a week, depending what the doctor wants. So instead of recognizing that this person was about to have a procedure, I okayed for them to have blood thinners anyways.
Oh.
So what could have happened was during surgery, they could have had a bleeding incident and they could have lost their life. So it was a very serious incident. And I know that there's lots of nurses that I've talked to who have been awake for 20 hours like I was that day and have made mistakes like that. And they, we tend to really sit in that and we guilt ourselves and we beat ourselves up. And as we should learn from these mistakes. I'm not trying to say that I am blameless. I realized what I had done, and I honestly immediately left that job because I needed to evaluate, myself as a nurse and my priorities. So these are important things. And I think that we all have times where we've made mistakes or we've made errors that we could have avoided, medical or not, due to that exhaustion and that overwork.
And and you're right, because I come from the medical field as well. And I haven't worked 20 hours in a day, but there were times when we were literally short and I would have had to take 2 shifts because I needed the money and I could work it. So, 16-hour days. But I know that nurses are one of those people in healthcare that work the longest hours because they work 12-hour shifts and then they keep going and keep going. And they're some nurses, because they want to pay off their student loans, they go
Right.
from one job to another, right? That happens as well. So I know what you're saying is that we need to stop and smell the roses.
Right.
But the fact is that you are also bringing up the point of awareness, right? That you have to be aware of what's going on around you, and you have to be aware that, you know what, I can't take it down. So, and you're right that you needed to take inventory of where you are and evaluate of where you are and what you needed to do. So in your case, when you left that job, are you still doing nursing?
I do nursing part-time, not something that I'm doing full-time just because of my coaching practice. But I left that job and I went to do corporate consulting for hospitals. So I was still in that medical field, but I was doing it in a different way. And so, and I do find that was very fulfilling, but that was also a lot of 12-hour shifts. That was also working night shifts and maybe immediately going into day shifts. And there was a lot of overwork there, but because it wasn't patient care on the line, it felt different to me. But I also, because of that, because of all those traveling, I was neglecting my personal life, my romantic relationships, and a lot of other parts of my life. I mean, I wasn't eating well because I was traveling. So, you know, you're in hotel rooms, you're eating out, you're ordering takeout because you're in a hotel room. So, you know, there was also that.
You went from one burnout to another.
Right. Different kinds, I would say. I would not call them the same kind of burnout, but absolutely.
A burnout. So I love this talk that we're having is because the fact is that you are saying that a burnout can not only come from just one thing, it can be a multiple of things, or it can be different things, but you have to recognize, seeing them, that this is a burnout.
Right.
I know, because I have a husband who works with the HVAC stuff, right? And he's on the roof, especially this time of the year. And it's hot out there and it's really tiring. And then when he just keeps going because he doesn't want to leave his customers in a rut. And
Right.
For me, it's like, you need to stop when you need to stop, but he just keeps going. And so that's another thing, right? Sorry about that. Sorry.
I do want to just kind of bring up just really quickly, because I find that when I talk about awareness and taking stock, that is usually extremely hard when we're in that day-to-day hustle and bustle and we're rushing from one task to the next. It's really hard to see that big picture when we are so stuck in those weeds. So I think that, you know, if you're having issues and trouble, being aware and taking stock, and maybe, you know, something's wrong, but you really haven't figured out quite what it is, slowing down and allowing yourself time to look at your big picture is what's really going to help you with that clarity, because you really can't do it when you're going from appointment to appointment to appointment.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So how do you how do you suggest that people take that time off to become clear the murky waters, as they say?
So, because we're all extremely busy, I'm not, you know, suggesting that we all take hours every day, but what I try to do is I take about 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the evening, and I try to bookend my days with some sort of reading or journaling or some type of way of really putting my thoughts to paper and being like, what's working for me right now, what's not working for me, what went well for me today, what might not have gone so well, what I need to improve, and really just kind of sitting with your own thoughts, because we typically don't always do that. Meditation is another great way. I know a lot of people subscribe to that. So it's really just kind of taking just even 5-10 minutes is more than what, you know, you're probably currently doing, and just not having that space and the very early morning or the evening where you have that time to kind of recollect and reflect on everything.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So why are you coaching on this? I mean, what led you? I mean, was it your own burnouts that led you to coaching on this subject?
Yes, I really think that it did. And I saw that burnout is not only just this endemic in the healthcare fields, as you know, you're in the medical fields, but in teaching, in like a lot of, in entrepreneurship, there's a lot of fields where we feel like this is kind of the norm, it's inevitable, and we need to just kind of push through it when that doesn't need to be the reality. So I really saw that, like, you know, I wanted to be that lone voice that says, hey, you don't actually have to do that to be successful. There is another way. So that was one part of that. And then the other part is I find that a lot of us kind of in some instinctual ways, we know we need to take care of our health. We know we need to slow down in some ways. We know we need to practice more self-care. But the coaching comes in because we kind of know to do those things, but we don't keep those promises to ourselves. We might make that promise to care for ourselves. January 1st is a great example of that, where we make that promise to ourselves about caring for ourselves, and we don't keep the promise. So coaching really comes in to be like, there is somebody who's going to say, hey, you are important. Keep that promise to yourself, because it's going to help in your business. It's going to help your relationships. It's going to help in so many ways.
Okay. No, that makes sense. So are you working only primarily with healthcare workers, or do you have other people that you're working with?
So I first started with healthcare professionals, just being a nurse. I know what that life is like. That is something I'm very familiar with, because a lot of people might not understand what it's like to be a nurse. But I began to expand because I feel that that this can be taken for other high stress industries. And like I said, especially being an entrepreneur now as well, I see it in entrepreneurs. So I kind of went from this really, really narrow and started to expand it a bit more.
Oh, great. So I love the fact that you're so on the point that, you know, people have to, you have to take care of yourselves. So what are the consequences? You make, you in your case, you made a medical error and you almost had an accident it could have been fatal. But what are the other consequences that could happen if people didn't take care of themselves?
So I also used the example of my romantic relationship. My engagement was broken because of my inability to put that as a priority in my life. And I still see it as an entrepreneur now. Like, I'm currently married, and, you know, if I don't take that time, not just for myself, but for my relationship, that's going to suffer. So our relationships suffer, and our health suffers so much from this, because that's the one thing that once that's gone, you can't necessarily get back. You know, a lot of times, you know, we may feel pain, but we don't go to the doctor until it's a heart attack. And by then it's not exactly too late, but it is so much worse problem now than it could have been 6 months to a year ago. So, you know, I really want to help people avoid a personal crisis, either be it in your personal life or with your health, because once it's at a crisis level, there's so much more you have to do now. If you were just trying to keep a habit of maintenance on yourself and your relationships, that is so much easier than trying to manage a full-on crisis.
So prevention is better than cure, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's an awesome message, because I love the fact that you honed into that and you're helping others to get out of it. The fact is that I hope it's not too late for a lot of people, right?
Right.
And you're right, it's not only just work, it's also relationships. It's also, I mean, there can be a catastrophe right around the corner, right?
Right.
And so I'm learning so much that you're teaching me today. And, you know, I've met so many people that are teaching me so many good stuff, but you have a different focus in life that you know, because of your prior experiences, you know, and thank you so much for sharing those, because not everybody has the courage to share that.
Right. I mean, I think that especially with medication errors, it was something I was very shameful about for years. I didn't want to talk to anybody, but I made that mistake that could have that killed somebody. But I also realized that there's a lot of people who feel similarly, that have had problems in their life, they can trace back to being exhausted, being overworked. And I wanted people to know that that's part of your story, and that is what's going to help you rise above and be better than what you were before. You know, there are so many things that they can be really hard, they can be really, they could even be tragic, but that doesn't have to define us. You know, we can use that as fuel, as inspiration. So I wanted that to be more inspiration to other people, that there is a life beyond that.
You're right. You're right. There is a life beyond that. And you're right. You have to prevent these things before it becomes, you know, prevention is better than cure, because, you know, that cure can either there is either a cure or there isn't, and then the suffering can kill you.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. No, I loved this.
No, and the fact of the matter is, people, slow down, smell the roses, right? This is her message to us today, is that don't let this get to a point where you literally are at a shutdown mode. You know, it's like a car maintenance. You have to keep up with the regular oil changes. You have to keep up with the tire rotation and all of that good stuff, because if you don't and your car stops down, you're going to have a lot of problems. Just like that with our bodies too. Love yourself. And I'll tell you one thing, you know, this is something that I purchased the other day, and look what it says.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and so
love yourself.
Yeah, and I've kept this because it says, you know, even the clothes that I purchased had this, and I'm like, it's telling me to love myself. There's a subliminal message in here, so I've kept it.
Right.
And so it begins with yourself, because, you know, like they say in the airlines, you have to put on the mask first before you help other people. So, you know, learn to love yourself, enjoy life, learn to smell the roses, and slow down. Don't let it become a catastrophe. Thank you so much, Crystal. I really appreciate your time. I am humbled for that. And for those of you who are watching, please like, subscribe, and share this video. And if you like something, let us know so we can get you in contact with Crystal. And if you are one of those people who want to be interviewed, go ahead and send me a Facebook message, or I'm on LinkedIn. There's only one Munira Zahabi so far in the world. Go ahead, send me a message, and I will have you on my show. Thank you. Over and out.